Hello, everybody. Welcome to Everything in Poderation, because sometimes the internet can be too much. I'm Robert, and I am a divided man in a divided country, but my feelings are very not divided at all.
Nice. I'm Daily, and I have COVID-19. My lungs feel divided.
Beautiful.
Hi, I'm Colin, and Daly's definitely not joking, by the way. Mm-hmm. She's absolutely being honest, which is really sad, even though I'm laughing. But
laugh at my pain.
Yeah, no, but just a reminder, guys, as of today, which is November 4th, COVID's supposed to be over. So you guys can all go outside now. Pandemic's over. You guys can eat at restaurants again. No more takeout.
I'm so glad how quickly, Colin, you swung from, no, seriously, Daily has COVID too, but COVID's over.
I'm the only one.
Yeah.
I'm the outlier.
The last holdout.
Yeah.
The last in the Mohicans.
Yeah. So based on the title of this episode, some of you have probably already tuned out, which is unfortunate, but
you even clicked on it.
Yeah. If you are still on the fence, I implore you to stay, because I think this will be an interesting discussion about the state of the country and how politics is playing a very interesting role in everything going on.
Well, I hope you're not hearing this on the fence about who you're voting about, because it's a little too late for that. But
yeah, well, I mean, there are a lot of things that go into people's decisions on who they vote for. So I don't think it's fair to assume that everyone has to be voting for someone right now. But for context, we are at November 4th. It's 7 p.m. Pacific time. So Election Watch 2020, we don't know who the fucking president's gonna be, so that's kind of where we're at right now. It's great, it's hell, and we have preserved it forever in audio form, so we can always go back to this if we ever just need a hit of anxiety. We just ever like, man, I could use some anxiety today. I'm just gonna play this episode.
Yeah, and just for historical reference, right now we're in that place where you guys are looking back in history right now because you're listening to this, but we're at that place where Nevada, kind of Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina, and Pennsylvania have not been called yet. So right now, we're waiting on Biden to clinch both Arizona and Nevada, and if he clinches both of those, he will be declared a winner. But Nevada has gone back and forth twice now about whether or not they're going to finish counting their votes today. So we're not going to know until tomorrow. So you could very well wake up tomorrow and Biden's the president, or this is going to be drawn out for another possible week.
Yeah.
It's a big shrug fest right now, but like a really anxious one, like where your shoulders really touch your ears.
And I'm just going to say for the record, since again, you're listening to this in the future, man, am I so fucking glad that orange asshole is out of the White House. And we have someone who's still a little bit racist, but not as racist, that's going to go in there in January. Unless things go the other way, in which case, note to future me, edit this out. Man, I'm so glad our supreme leader, president, master leader man, Donald Trump, has won and prevailed again against the idiot leftists who want to destroy America. Am I right, comrades?
You are correct,
brethren.
Not comrade, because that would be communism.
Right. Sorry.
Yeah,
I'm gonna just go shoot myself now.
I, for one, love our gorilla orange Cheeto overlord. All hail President God King Trump.
Hey,
God King.
You know, the second that he became president, which was my favorite second of my life, he outlawed the word Cheeto to be used to describe him.
Do you think cheetah because he's fast?
Listen, I'm just saying that if Trump buys a PS5 and he picks up that controller, the DualSense controller, it's going to be orange after he puts it back down.
Yeah, got him. Fucking dunked.
There's no way I would want to play a video game console after Trump had just touched it.
Mm-hmm.
Little baby hands.
Here's
your controller back, bro.
The controller's too big for his little baby hands.
Man, I gotta say, this cold open of our episode is gonna age so fucking horribly if Trump does actually win.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, this episode has a lifespan of like not at all.
We just don't know.
Because
we just don't know.
It's going to be obsolete by the time it comes out in the morning.
It's so terrible that we just don't know. It shouldn't be this close, guys. It shouldn't.
So I know we've been keeping a pretty good front here. It's pretty hard to tell who we're rooting for in our very unbiased show, where we don't lean one way or the other, because we're equally okay with saving the world from climate change and fascism. So I don't care which way the election goes.
Yeah.
But to bring this back to the core idea of what everything in Poderation is about, I want to bring us into how the internet has created a world with two Americas in a way. I mean, there are many, right? But it feels like, and if there's anything that Tuesday has shown us, it feels like America is a country very divided and very polarized.
Yeah.
Very much so. What a crazy time to be living in, because I mean, we were expecting going into, I mean, there was nobody really truly knew how this election was going to pan out. There's so much speculation, especially if you're like any of us and listen to like political podcasts and watch the news every day and see the news on all your social medias and a whole bunch of other shit. Like, a lot of people were favoring that Biden was going to win this election, and by a pretty large margin, but that always came with the caveat of like, but we don't actually really fucking know, guys. Like, this could go any which way. And here we are a day after election day, and we're pretty much 50-50, at least on the popular vote. Damn near it. I mean, Biden has a lead right now by about 3 million votes, but like, we're still like, Trump has 68 million votes. Biden has 71 million. About half the country is vying for Trump to win.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And what does that say? Like, what does that say about the people that we're voting for, our electoral system, you know, how we get across information, where we get our news from, et cetera, et cetera. Like, a million and one things. Like, there's just so much to be gleaned. And this election is, no matter how it pans out, is going to be studied for decades. Like,
oh yeah.
Crazy shit. Like,
yeah.
It's still history in the making right now. It's not even over yet.
Yeah.
So
it definitely, this was the first real election where I think like we've had the internet for a hot minute now, but it's never, like, social media has never been at such a peak at this point where everyone can jump up on the soapbox and give their opinion and root for whoever they want to, or intimidate other people into rooting for that person, or literally organize marches for one person or the other. It's a very different world because of the internet. I don't think we would have anything, and nothing. It would look totally different if we just didn't have social media as ubiquitous as it is at this point.
Yeah, 100%. And I would say social media is probably one of the biggest drivers of making an internet that can cause so much polarization. Because a lot of it is essentially, it kind of boils down to echo chambers, right? That's one of the driving factors, because once you surround yourself in an echo chamber, you start to believe that the rest of the world agrees with what you're saying. Like, no, duh, of course. Like, of course everyone believes these things. These are ubiquitous across
all my
of America.
friends are saying it. Everyone I follow is saying it.
Mm-hmm. All my homies want guns. And once you have kind of internalized that message, you believe every American should do it. And then all of a sudden, when there's another group of Americans who say, we don't want the Second Amendment anymore, we want to ban the Second Amendment, and we want to say, take away your guns, they aren't American to you anymore. They're a villain. They're evil. They're the other. They're the us versus them kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, among many, many other things. I mean, all three of us here at some point have lived in what is now a red state, right? You know, Daly from Indiana, Robert and I both lived in Ohio. I grew up and was born and raised in Ohio. And so, like, I've really tried to go back and understand exactly why we even are dealing with someone like Trump in the first place, why we have him in a place where he's able to get or spread his misinformation and try to spread lies, and now doing something as serious as saying, like, he's already won the election and not even all the votes are counted right now, but damn, like he's already got his followers out rallying around different polling places. He's got people trying to tell them to stop the count voting or recount. He's got his lawyers out trying to sue different states to recount the vote. And so this is really serious, and people just like that are dropping what they know about our government and just saying like, well, Trump said that, this needs to be recounted. This needs to happen with the vote. So I'm just going to roll with it because I support him through and through. It's like blind support. And so growing up in a place like where I grew up, like you kind of understand why someone like Trump becomes president, right? Because people don't like career politicians, at least in more rural areas like where I grew up, because they don't feel like they're fighting for the little guy. And here comes Trump acknowledging the problems, at least, of more blue collar workers, saying that like, hey, I'm going to fight against career politicians. And if you go back actually to 2016 and watch Trump's like closing comments, his lead message for his last ad that he did before the final general election, that entire ad is nothing but like, hey, I'm here to fight for the little guy. I'm here to fight against the establishment and the politicians. I'm here for you guys, and I'm going to be representative of exactly. Like, I'm going to go in to the government and I'm going to represent people that never felt like they had a voice in the federal government. Of course, 4 years later, we see a very different, final Trump ad where he's literally dancing to YMCA and doing this double jerking off dicks fucking dance. But
something that he's never done.
Yeah. And so like, it was one of those things where like people are so attached to Trump's 2016 message, and I understand why. Like, if you're someone who doesn't follow politics and you want someone to just tell you that it's going to be okay, that, hey, guys, don't worry, our economy's doing great. Hey, guys, don't worry, unemployment's low. Jobs are doing fine. I'm handling this pandemic, et cetera, et cetera. He's saying what he needs to say, and that's good enough for some people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that the people that bought into that message, it's fine. I don't know if it's fine that they did. There was definitely a lot more research that needed to be put in there, or, the whole thing about him and his Access Hollywood tape that should have put people off, but it didn't. But I've come to expect that out of people as a whole. But regardless of that, if they genuinely believe that that's what he was going to do, he was going to, quote unquote, drain the swamp. He was going to change things up. He wasn't a career politician, et cetera, et cetera. Even over these last 4 years of people seeing that that was not the case and that things got even more mired, if anything, I think the internet as a whole, because you have that permanent recording of someone's support and their voice being out there talking about how great Trump is, it's hard to go back on that then. It's hard to admit, like, I was wrong. Like, you should, but I get where I think that because of the internet, because of social media, this might, propel people not to think critically and change their mind when they're like, well, I already said that, I'm voting for Trump, so I can't go back on that.
Mm-hmm. And now that we're getting into social media, I want to dive into one specifically out of many. There are many social media, platforms out there. But Facebook is one that's been in the news a lot. You heard about this one? They made a movie about it, I think, a couple years ago. Just a little social media platform.
Oh yeah, with Michael Cera.
Yeah, and he made the Facebook.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
with
starring
his
like
face.
Greg Sestero or something.
Yeah, and he got his uncle Jesse Eisenberg to help out. No, so yeah, the Facebook is an interesting platform in that, when you compare it to a lot of the other social media we have now, it's one that is very community driven. As in, most of the people that are your friends on Facebook are people you probably know in real life. They're people that you went to high school with, your coworkers, people you do see on a daily basis before the coronavirus hit, and in which case I haven't seen another human being in millennia at this point. But Facebook is very community. It's geographically centered for the most part,
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, you tend to have friends who share your values. Often they're like Christian values, right? Or, maybe conservative values in general, kind of just like permeate in that space. So it strengthens the bonds a little bit of making you feel like, okay, Ricky down the street wants to make abortion illegal, and like 50 of my other friends on Facebook also want to make abortion illegal. So I also think abortion should be illegal, I guess, because everyone else is doing it, right?
Right.
And if you're scrolling through your Facebook feed all the time, that is just going to be a constant message that you're just going to eventually end up believing in because you see it so often.
Yeah, and two, also when you're on social media like something like Facebook, the algorithm is built in a way, right, where if you're constantly getting messaging like that, it's gleaning that information and it's going to keep sharing and resharing other information, including news articles and other sources that support those types of beliefs and fundamentals. And it's just going to reassert what you were already starting to believe, whether you're conservative or liberal. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's going to show you the type of things you talk about. And that's not necessarily a conscious thing. It's just the way the algorithm works. Much in the same way as, you know, you search puppies on YouTube and you start watching a bunch of puppy videos, it's going to keep showing you more puppy videos than you recommended.
Mm-hmm.
So we knew that this is the way that group discussions worked, that we knew that this is what social media would eventually become in fucking 56, y'all. There was a psychological study done by Ash et al. That observed that there's a reduction of the
You mean like Ash and a bunch of their friends, right?
Ash and their buddies, yeah. Ash et al.
Yeah.
Ash,
gotta catch them all.
Comma et al. Yeah. But there's a reduction in the variability of private opinions after the group discussion. It's just like an upside down, parabola. So the extremity of your opinion just shifts toward the local norm after a group discussion. And discourse in groups are more likely to become even more polarized when let's see what this sounds like. Just stop it when you think you've figured it out. We feel psychologically distanced from others. We feel de-individualized. We're not personally responsible for our opinions. Societal groups are emphasized. Competition is encouraged, and we're segregated, and we discuss things at length. There's no hard stop to a conversation. It's almost like, like when you have a
football.
Post. Oh yeah, football. You're right. Dang it, Robert, you got it. No, but this was a study done in 1969. By Moscovici and Zavaloni, and that's just Facebook. You have a comment. Yeah. It's just there, and the comment thread can go forever. It can go for days. It can go for weeks. It can go for months. And it will. And we're totally distant from the people that we're talking to. There's screens and, wavelengths between us. And maybe you're even not using your actual identity. Maybe you're just arguing with someone on Reddit named Gallo Boob. Like,
yeah, I know that guy.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, you take the idea of social media and on, especially on some place like Reddit, you throw an anonymity in there too, right? Mm-hmm. Next thing you know, you're not really being held accountable for what you're saying. On some place like Facebook, where you do, in fact, have some sort of identifier there, unless you're like one of those anime character bullshit accounts that somehow get around and spam people. Yeah. Even if you post something, right, like you see memes about like, just made a spicy post, I'm going to close out the tab and just kind of leave it and not respond, because you're starting a discussion, but it's not really a discussion. It's more so like, I'm making my point and I'm not going to be argued on it.
It's the equivalent of like shouting something and then walking away.
Exactly. That's not having a discussion like we are right now, which is why, on a side note, people look to more outlets like this or like long form discussion.
Right. Yeah, I think for me, my grand thesis when it comes to social media, right, is that Facebook And to an extent, YouTube are the platforms that begin a descent into polarization, right? It's the beginning of your journey of vilifying the other, right? Because with Facebook, again, you are more likely to be surrounded by a community that believes in a certain set of beliefs, right? And Facebook itself is pretty notorious for spreading some really, what's the nice way to phrase it? Unverified news sources. In other words, bullshit.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, bullshit, misinformation and disinformation. But it's presented in a way like my uncle Johnny and my aunt Melinda shared this. So it has to, like, I mean, I trust them. They're family. Yeah. So, it makes sense. This pandemic thing. Oh, wait, the pandemic is just fake. Oh, of course.
Yeah, and it's funny that you bring that up because that even affected me. I didn't even know what the pandemic thing was. And my dad had actually brought it up to me, be like, "Have you seen this pandemic thing that's going around on Facebook?"
Wonderful.
And I'm like, and like I said, I had no idea about it. But as soon as he told me about it, I was already skeptical. But he's like, yeah, like the whole thing was like planned from the start. This pandemic's like a giant, it's hooey. It's a hoax. And
Malarkey.
So I'm like, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like it could be, I'm skeptical. Like I'd have to see some sources on that, but okay, sure. And so I looked it up and I'm like, oh, it's been removed because it's unverifiable. It's like taken off of YouTube. Like it goes against community guidelines for spreading misinformation. And I'm like, well, duh.
Yeah.
Not surprising whatsoever. But it just shows though that if you fake it until you make it, like if you present something like misinformation as fact, right? And even go as far as to having sources, may not be great sources, but you have sources, right? People will take it and they will run with it. And next thing you know, it spreads like wildfire.
If you say it with enough confidence, it's true. Listen to us.
Right? Yeah. We're right. You're wrong. That's the frustrating thing too, though, specifically about Facebook, is that there's the added kind of societal pressure that it's like, I don't want to have to call out grandma every time I get on Facebook for sharing stuff. You don't want to. I think that's why there's kind of this mass exodus of younger folks from Facebook, not only because it's not I don't think it's nearly as appealing for younger people today as it might have been in the past, because everyone and their grandma is literally on Facebook. Specifically, grandma, stop sharing fake stuff, because you don't want to call out grandma because grandma baked you cookies last week and it's your grandma, and you don't want to talk about politics with grandma. It's a whole thing that you don't want to kind of poke the bear's nest. It's a nest of bears. There's many bears.
Like if you say one bad thing, then you don't get grandma's conservative cookies anymore, and you don't want that.
Yeah. Or like you're like, man, she's confused. She's from a different time, which I think is an excuse, but I know it's hard to argue with your grandma.
It's such a weird place to be in when it comes to the spread of misinformation. The classic, don't want to talk about politics, or like, my relatives are Trump supporters and I'm not. Because, even I'm in a place where like, I'm fairly close with my parents, but I mean, they are, self-proclaimed Trump supporters. And, at the end of the day, like, yeah, that's troublesome to me. And I try to like explain and give them evidence, and they don't accept it, which is even more frustrating. But like, I don't think that makes them bad people that they do that. I just think they're misinformed people. And so in that fact, I mean, that's definitely let me soften on Trump supporters a little bit. I do go a little bit softer than a lot of people on Trump supporters, just because I grew up with so many people that like I can understand why they would swing in the direction of Trump.
Good old Ohio, baby.
Yeah, I mean, but like I understand the mentality behind it. I don't think it's necessarily the right mentality to have, and I think you should be informed and things like that. But I mean, you plain out can't expect everyone to be well versed or well researched or know where to look or be like know where to look for information or know how to properly go through and find proper resources. That's just a skill that a lot of people just take for granted because some people just don't know any better or don't want to know any better.
Yeah. No, I mean, that does make me think a lot about how, okay, so I'm going to go a little off track from social media real quick, but you just made me think of a point that I do want to make here. So, you know how for a good while there, the conservatives, especially Jim Jordan, our favorite representative from Ohio, went after a bunch of the big social media companies trying to say all the social media companies are catering to a liberal agenda and that they're setting up like the liberals for success, right? Like because of how you Google search and shit, right?
Yeah.
So for one, I'm almost convinced that most people in the House of Representatives and the Senate don't really know how most of the internet works.
Because there's proof of that. There's totally proof of that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
tons of footage.
But I to me, maybe it's because I'm 25. I don't fucking know, but it's like common knowledge that Google caters to whatever you like. Like if it notices that you like searching, I don't know, Hitler was a good person, it'll start gearing your results a little more toward, oh, you might be a white supremacist. You might really like these white supremacist sites, you know, or you might like these sources that have a more conservative, maybe even racist lean, right? And that isn't Google saying, hey, liberal agenda. That's just Google saying, hey, your agenda. It's just magnifying it and amplifying it, right?
Because we're the product.
Exactly.
That they sell to advertisers.
Yeah, if they're not directly selling you something, obviously selling you something, and it's free, you're the product.
And to me, it's the most weaponized on YouTube. All you have to do is like I've done this. This past year I've dived. I went into LeftTube, just all the leftist YouTubers like ContraPoints, HBomber Guy, etc. Right? And some of their videos they talk about the more like controversial things like flat earthers and climate change, QAnon and shit like that. Right? So now in my YouTube account, I have seen videos about flat Earth. And these are videos that are like debunking flat Earth. And I've gotten recommendations that are like, here's why the Earth is flat.
The other way
Proof
around.
that the Earth is flat. Exactly. Because it's the algorithm thinking, oh, you like flat Earth. So let's give you more flat Earth content. That sweet, juicy, prime flat Earther content.
Yeah.
And when you go into that spiral, it's endless.
Yeah. And that is to say that people that are much more susceptible to that sort of thing, right? That don't really know any better, next thing you know, they get down rabbit holes of whatever sort of belief system that the algorithm leads them down, and they're so engaged in all of that they like it has to be true. That's now their reality. That is the life that they lead, whatever that may be.
Yeah. It's fucking sinister. I looked up on YouTube I guess the like original, like, what is that called? Like like the original machine gun, like the crank operated dealio from Gatling gun. Like they're making those and selling those, and you can buy them. You can just straight up buy them. But I looked up because my father-in-law told me that, and I looked up a video of that, and now I'm getting like Rubin Report suggested to me.
Oh.
And
nice.
Like some right-wing media stuff and more gun stuff. Just because I looked up the one I wanted to see what the Gatling gun was that Colt is currently manufacturing.
Jesus. I mean, because like I've been watching good old Ben Shapiro, right? So on his show, he's had some more left-leaning people that I like, like Matt Iglesias and Ezra Klein, right? So I'm like, okay, so I'm definitely a left-leaning person, but I like to challenge myself with media that isn't left-leaning, because then if I can challenge myself with that, I can be a little more firm in my beliefs, right? So I decided, okay, Ben Shapiro's a numbnut man who likes dry pussies.
He's short.
So he is. I'm not gonna. I'm 5'7". I don't have many inches to say, but he had like Matt Iglesias on the show, so I watched an episode of that, and now I'm just getting a ton of Ben Shapiro shit in my recommendations. The stupid stuff like Ben Shapiro destroys transgenderism and shit like that, and I'm like, okay, dude, I don't
crushes.
believe
It's
in that
always
shit.
like a verb.
Yeah.
I mean, that just comes back to like not only stuff like that, but just gotcha headlines in general, clickbaity sort of like, this is right in your wheelhouse of what you want to believe, and so we're gonna misconstrue the facts to fit your belief system and to get you riled up and get you to join our side or whatever that thing is. You know what I'm saying? But not only that, it also kills the idea of open discussion more and more, I think, too. And I think that's the biggest thing with all of this is just the level of reductiveness on both sides of the political spectrum. Just the fact that it's just become so difficult to have a proper conversation, because it is kind of all boiled down to like a tweet within a few hundred characters or a post or comments that can be shut off or skipped, or like there's no nuance there. I mean, there's plenty of times when I've seen online debates and from even on two different political leanings, and these two people are having a debate and one side just completely dismisses the other's point, or just like nothing's expanded upon, and it's just left like there's so many stones left unturned in a lot of these conversations, and I don't think anything's learned from it. And so I think the most important thing we can do right now is to just have a proper discussion, even if there's someone you disagree with on a lot of issues.
Yeah. It feels a lot like I guess what would the word be? Not like gotcha, but like someone wants to drop the mic at the end of the conversation.
Oh,
like,
it's definitely a little bit gotcha.
Yeah, like someone, like I saw a tweet where it was like, no one that I have met has described like COVID-19 as worse than the flu. And then someone replied with like, my, oxygen saturation level was down to 52 and I had to go to the hospital, and like it felt like my bones were coming out of my skin and this and this and this. And then they were just like, well, I haven't met you, was their literal reply.
Well, they won. They won that argument.
One, gotcha. Got it.
Yeah, boom, owned.
Just no one wants to admit that they're wrong about things.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty on point. It's a pretty on brand point in that I forget what I was listening to that made me think this, because I've listened to so much. But there's a point that I've heard made in that liberals, generally speaking, really like to win arguments. That's kind of the same idea that you're both getting at here, with like the gotcha with the dropping the mic feeling, right? It's just the idea of winning an argument. And because of shows like West Wing, it portrays this quote unquote winning an argument as, I'm going to make a long-winded monologue point. It's going to take me like 5 minutes, 10 minutes to discuss it. And then by the end of it, you're going to have no rebuttals because I made such a stalwart, defensible point that you can't crack any chinks in that armor, right? And that's cool and all. But then the right just says, cry more, lib. And then they win.
Yeah.
Like that's all, because then the argument isn't about whether abortion should be legal or illegal. It's just the argument is now, you're a little bitch. Just fucking stay in line and stop being the nail that stands up.
Or what aboutism? It just becomes about what about this? What about this? If you don't address literally everything under the sun, then your argument is totally invalid.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's somebody else did this, so this is perfectly fine then.
Yeah, or you have the Ben Shapiro where you talk way too fast, and then you don't make any real points, but you think you've won because you've talked over everything.
You said a lot of words there. Yep, that must mean you won. You win. Yeah, I've
even seen OAN, that very left leaning news site that doesn't at all favor Donald Trump in any way, shape, or form. I've seen clips of one of the reporters at the White House press conferences back in like March and April, and she asked Trump like setting up the question. So about like 2,000 people have died from coronavirus right now. But every week, 2,000 abortions happen. We're killing 2,000 fetuses. So are you doing a good job? And it's like, hold on. Are you comparing like the deaths of people from COVID to abortions, right? Like,
Is that
what?
a question? That's just numbers. I'm so confused. Like, what is how do I know?
I mean, the point of that is to offer a standing ground for Trump to say, like, okay, 2,000 people have died under my watch, but I'm trying to stop 2,000 more people from dying a week by getting rid of abortion, right? And that ignores so many facts and arguments about abortion and whether it's okay to have it or not, right? It just kind of assumes immediately abortion is murder or abortion is death, right?
Yeah.
It's just obnoxious.
Yeah. And so, just to put a little bit of perspective on it, and Robert and I talked about this a little bit, from what I can see, a lot of Trump supporters, especially a lot of people like in and around my hometown, like rural Midwesterners, a lot of the people that I know that are pro-Trump come from a place of like, okay, like even with Trump, I don't necessarily agree with everything he says or everything he's done. I mean, the Hollywood tape aside, among many other things, but what I really care about is how this affects me directly, what my bottom line looks like, because this isn't like, I'm not in it for the personality of the president, right? They're not, I'm not here for the celebrity or for the role modeling. I'm here because this is a business transaction.
Right.
Like, I'm here because Trump made a thing and that made me pay less taxes.
Mm-hmm.
I make more money because what Trump did, and I want to continue to have that happen. I want to continue to make more money, so I'm going to keep voting for Trump, right? And so all the other stuff is just like, that's negligible to them.
Right.
It's all about the business transaction and what exactly is being affected on my end. Like how is healthcare going to be affected? Oh, I can keep my private insurance. I don't want government issued healthcare because I paid too much for Obamacare when that was a thing. And even when as far as like getting penalized for not opting for Obamacare,
Right.
So in that sense, like, I can understand where someone would come from. However, me personally, I think it's in poor taste to ignore everything outside of that, and not to mention every other policy that Trump's come up with, or hasn't come up with, for that matter.
It's very
and has claimed to.
Very like, fuck you, got mine.
Yeah,
it is.
I'm set, so sorry, everyone else.
Yeah, it's a mindset. I think this is something that a lot of people on the left do need to understand, right? Because I think with the left, their gotcha moment, their own the conservative, own the cons. There's something there. Own the tivs. They're that is racism and sexism, right? To a lot of people on the left, those are like sacred, like, we're trying to get to a place where sexism and racism isn't a thing, right?
A lot of people they just wave it aside.
Exactly.
Right.
It's not real.
Like, right. Well, it's not even that. Like, there are people on the right who may believe, like, yeah, they're sexist people. Yeah, the institutions in America are racist, but like, doesn't matter to me. Doesn't affect me. I'm a white man. I don't give, it sucks to suck that you're black and a woman, but I ain't, so I don't need to care, right? And that's just something I think that the left needs to understand, is that even though those are sacred things that we're fighting for and that we should be fighting for, you can't just assume that everyone thinks they're sacred too. There are going to be a lot of people who don't prioritize that as a top tier issue, despite the fact that it really should be.
There's racist people.
Well, I think we should be a little clear in that if you don't prioritize eliminating racism, that doesn't inherently make you a racist, I think. At least not an active one, right? But if you see all the evidence laid before you and you refuse to acknowledge that there is institutionalized racism, you are part of the problem.
If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem.
Right. And if you don't know anything, a lot of people on the left like to say the solution is to learn. They say it like it's an easy, you just Google like, is America racist? And all the things pop up and you're good. But that's not how it works. And you have to also keep in mind there are a lot of people who are busy with a lot of other shit during the day, like working to feed their family and stuff, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And that gets into the whole thing of like, you know, there's plenty of people out there that don't really have time to pay attention closely to politics. You know, they're too busy worrying about how they're going to get their next meal on the table for their family. And if someone like Trump can come in there and help them do that by giving them more money by cutting taxes, well, bada bing, bada boom, they're voting for Trump.
Yeah.
You know,
and at that point, it really comes down to your perception of the to be president, right? Because theoretically, both the Democratic and the Republican president and the third party president, if we ever live long enough to see that, part of all of their priorities should be helping you put food on the table, right?
Yeah.
Like if a Democrat ran on, I want to make sure you only get dinner once a week, motherfucker, they're not going to win, right? But you know, that's just an average thing that every American president should want to do. So at that point, it becomes, do I perceive Trump to be the better person, or do I perceive Biden to be the better person? In this scenario, as an example, I want to gear this back to talking about internet and social media, in that we've established that Facebook and YouTube are kind of the rabbit holes that lead you to believe in a bit of an echo chamber, or to be in an echo chamber that you've stumbled upon yourself, right? I think the next step, or maybe not even step, because you can't say that everyone on Facebook is on Reddit, but I feel like the adjacent bit here is Reddit itself. Yeah. Reddit as a social media platform is not a place where you go there because all of your neighbors are there, because of the people you went to high school with are there, right? Like, sure, you can join your local communities like r/Seattle, right, to presumably be with other Seattleites, but it's not like you know everyone there, right? Like, not personally.
No.
But what Reddit allows with its subreddit community, it allows you to create a feed that feels worldly, or at the very least, it feels beyond your immediate community, that agrees with your worldview. And that'll slowly make you believe that the rest of the world believes in what I believe, right?
Yeah. No, sorry. I heard you take a breath, so I thought you were going to say something else. So Reddit is really interesting because what you're saying is, for the most part, correct. Because what you're essentially doing is you're opting into a bunch of enthusiast groups or forums, or basically miniature echo chambers in a sense. However, there are subreddits that are inherently made to have people challenge each other, essentially, and their ideals, i.e. r/Ask Trump supporters, or something like that.
r/
so
change
just wanted
my
to throw
view.
that
yeah,
exactly.
That one's a good one.
Yeah, and just wanted to throw that caveat in there. And I also wanted to throw this out there too, is like, I know we keep talking about this, like, coming from, it kind of sounds like we're a little bit ivory tower-ish, but I at least want to say that, like, I am not perfect. I don't think anyone's perfect when it comes to the information that they get. Like, I'm certainly guilty of, like, taking a headline at face value and things like that, and just kind of running with that information. And I bring that up now because Reddit is a pretty big source of information for me personally. And it's because I like the way that sources are easily traded, and links are given on a place like Reddit. Daily's playing with a cat. But yeah, just wanted to kind of throw that out there.
Yeah, and I agree. There are definitely some subreddits that are meant to challenge your views. And the beauty of Reddit, too, is that you don't even have to go to a subreddit that's specifically about challenging your views. Like, if you are a staunch, like, if you firmly, truly believe that transgenderism doesn't exist and is a sin on the earth and a stain on God's immortal will, you can go to a transgender community on Reddit and just see what they do and see what they post, right? And
it's out there.
If you have, yeah, exactly. Granted, if you already are in the camp of there's only man and woman, nothing in between, no changes in between, then you probably will never go to a transgender subreddit. But the option's there. And if you do, you can at least challenge yourself and be like, okay, but how does this side that I believe is immoral, how do they live, right? But for the most part, you're probably going to join like r/Christianity, r/conservative, r/the Donald when that existed.
That existed. That was a thing. And then it wasn't a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can go to Reddit to bolster your worldview because we like doing that as humans. You know, if I like ice cream, I like to surround myself by other people who like ice cream. So that just kind of makes sense that you're going to join those communities that jive with your turkey.
Right. Join is the key word here.
Mm-hmm.
Me personally, I do find myself sometimes browsing, subreddits with opposing views on purpose just to see what the other side thinks on whatever given issue. Or like browsing enthusiast subreddits about a given hobby that I'm probably have almost no chance of joining, i.e. like I looked at like people that take care of snakes, pet snakes.
Hell
I don't plan on ever getting a pet snake, but it's interesting to me.
Was that a not safe for work sub?
Maybe.
Sneks.
You be the judge.
r/Sneks is really cute. SNEKS, yes.
Or r/snakes with tats or r/snake with arms.
I found out something about Colin today. I didn't know that you were as into snakes as you are. That's cool. I like snakes.
He's horny for snakes.
Yeah,
Ooh.
That was one night's rabbit hole. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so with Reddit, gross. With Reddit, you can now join these communities that aren't geographically close to you, right? They're geographically divorced from anything on Earth because it's all on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it feel like this glorious hive mind where, yeah, everyone like believes that transgenderism is dumb and wrong because everyone on r/ any of you know an anti-transgender subreddit off the top of your head? Because I fucking don't. But everyone on that, anti-trans subreddit believes that it's bad. So therefore, it's like everyone on the world probably believes that,
Yeah, it becomes it's so strange then when stuff like that comes to light, like because we're talking about, unfortunately, anti-transgenderism, like with the thing that happened with J.K. Rowling. Like in her environment, certainly she's surrounded herself with trans exclusionary, I'm using that word right, yeah, trans exclusionary radical feminists, TERFs.
Mm-hmm. TERFs.
So of course when she thinks that she's being reasonable when she tweets things about quote unquote biological sex and gender being the same thing. But out here where we have more sources and markedly different ones, it's suddenly jarring to see that in just pop into your own bubble, which I think it's safe to say that we're all in bubbles of our own creation, more or less, even if you're not, trying to consciously do it. If you're trying to keep abreast of other groups, the algorithms, like we said earlier, they're gonna get you. They're gonna be like, oh, you like this and this and this, and you go down that rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm. Bubbles of our own creation, my next band name.
Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not a bad one. What kind of genre?
Bubble pop.
You mean bubble gum pop?
No, just bubble pop. It's a whole new thing.
Oh shit,
Bubble
you're inventing your own genre.
It's really underground. You haven't heard it yet.
Super politically charged pop music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think with Reddit is it does do a lot of similar things as YouTube, right? In the way it curates your personal feed. I've experienced it too, where I check out our gaming circle jerk every now and then, which is a very dangerous subreddit because they're making fun of the gamers who think politics shouldn't be in video games and how Abby was totally a trans man because there's no way a woman can be buff, etc. If you want more context, we did an episode on it like a couple weeks back. But I frequent that a lot because they joke about these people. But then I start seeing more and more posts about it as if Reddit thinks, oh, you are like an anti-politics gamer. And I'm like, oh, fuck.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
My journey on finding weird alt humor has led me to the alt-right. And I'm like, fuck, I hate the algorithm sometimes because it does that.
It feels like weirdly offensive. It's like, no, I don't think that way. Don't think that I think that way.
Yeah, it's annoying. But so
Yeah.
where the? Oh, do you have a point? Did
No,
you have-
I mean, well, it's more so. It's just Reddit's this weird Wild West place where it's really hard to tell. Like, Gaming Circle Jerk is one of those places where it's like you do kind of have a mishmash of people that are there that like may not agree with some of the memes, but like the other ones because they are actually funny.
Mhm.
But because next thing you know, like it could be one of those things where it's like, oh, you're part of this. This has a bad rap, so
Yeah.
you're kind of screwed.
Mhm.
And I mean, if you ever think of anything outside of like even like remotely political subreddits, like let's take like r/woodworking. I like that one.
Also a porn subreddit.
Right.
Work that wood.
Damn
You're really
it.
on them tonight.
I fucking God. Now you're looking at my my porn Reddit. Like you're gonna have people from all walks of life though there too. Like you're not, all political leanings. This just so happened to converge on the hobby of woodworking. I mean, that's not really a politically charged thing. At least I wouldn't think so, unless people's putting like engraving swastikas into their bench that they just crafted.
Yeah.
Or, like,
r/fascist woodworking.
Oh, God.
It's the exact same thing, except you just add that swastika at the end, just as the quick
To
finish.
everything.
Everything.
Mhm.
This chair I
Yeah,
made,
everything.
this bench I made, this cabinetry. I don't know.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't know. It's that's making me think of, you'll remember 4 years ago when the world was just a little bit of a better place. Ken Bone from
Bone.
the remember that guy from I think it was the
his
town
sweater.
hall.
His red sweater.
His red sweater. He did an AMA on r/IAMA, and he answered a couple questions like, "Oh yeah, no, I'm that goofy dude that was on TV during the town hall." And then people dove into his Reddit account because he used like his
Ooh.
personal Reddit account.
Ooh.
And woof, man, oh man, that was a collision of personal beliefs coming to one place that isn't really all about those personal political beliefs, up to and including being interested in pregnant women porn.
Yep.
Woo! Which is
Said some
fascinating.
things about Jennifer Lawrence's butthole. That's cool. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
There's this great feature on Reddit now called anonymous browsing, you guys. Just throwing that out there.
Nope, I want it all on the record.
Every
Ken
comment,
Bone wanted every
upvote.
Ken Bone. He wanted everyone to know that he thinks pregnant women are beautiful human submarines, which I'm fairly sure he has said that in a
Wait.
comment.
That took every
True?
ounce of my being to not do a spit take there.
Yes.
I mean, in reality, aren't all humans just submarines that carry organs, and some other humans carry humans in them?
I carry subs in me,
Well,
Oh, I'm
like
hungry
sub
now.
sandwiches.
oh,
I
thought
still
you meant,
can't
like,
taste
submissive people.
anything.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
I can't taste
I mean,
or
it's
smell
okay.
nothing.
You can't really. I mean, Subway doesn't really taste good anyway.
That makes it easier to eat.
Yeah. I've been eating super healthy lately because it's just like I can just beet juice, bring it on. I don't know.
Put it in my mouth.
Is that
I did not say that. That's not a
Ignoring
daily
that.
quote.
Gross.
I can't tell if Daly's being sarcastic.
I have been drinking beet juice. It's very good for you.
I'm proud of you.
Okay.
So that brings me to my final point here about social media, just to tie this all up, right? So Facebook and YouTube is where you can stumble into these rabbit holes. Reddit is where you can go searching out for what you might perceive as a global view of your rabbit hole that you've fallen into, right? And then Twitter is the Thunderdome. Twitter is the battlefield that no man's and no woman's and no non-binaries land of the internet, because it has every piece you need to be a cesspool of conflicting, hurtful, and vitriolic opinions. And it's to the point where I think Twitter should be deleted in some ways, or at least changed. That being said, go follow us, Everything in Poderation on Twitter.
Hey.
We don't tweet bad things sometimes.
Sometimes. Most of the time it's bad things, but sometimes it's not.
Sometimes, yeah. And so the reason I'm seeing it this way is you have notoriously Twitter is all about short tweets, right? Like short 140 to 280 characters, right? Like barely enough to really get some thoughts out there. And with that, a lot of things can be taken out of context, or you can't fully explain your position, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have the whole bot infestation with so many conservative puppeting bots that are named like Joe 1485764847245 saying shit like and God. Retweeting and replying to a bunch of things just to like incite madness. It's not even to push conservative views, but it's to trigger people into fighting back and
getting themselves canceled.
Yeah. Well, not even that, just like getting angry. So that way you think, I hate Bob and I hate every conservative out there. Therefore, I don't want to deal with conservatives anymore. And once you fall into that point, you kind of have given up on the American dream experiment. It's kind of imploding on itself a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah. I think Twitter really is a battleground is a great word for it. It's one of those places where I don't know, like, I mean, from my end as someone who's been a part of gaming Twitter, that's probably my biggest bubble on Twitter is gaming Twitter, game dev Twitter, games media Twitter. I mean, that's in and of itself a pretty scary place because, I mean, there have been times where like it says something like, oh, that you weren't liberal enough, so you're canceled now. Yeah, like I know you're lefty, but you weren't quite left enough, so you're done. Now, I've also seen gaming Twitter like kind of eat its own foot too, where it's like, you know, someone who is like usually someone that is proclaiming to be pretty hard left, you know, says something fairly controversial. It's like, hey, maybe he wasn't, you know, all he was made out to be, and then next thing you know, he gets canceled. Or she, you know. I don't know. So Twitter is just a wild place, man. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't really know what to make of it sometimes.
Yeah, it's definitely like that mic drop moment, like I mentioned before, and that's what these bots love to capitalize on, is just getting that one tweet that will get enough traction and interactions that it doesn't matter that they just made the account and then it gets deleted 2 weeks later. It's done the damage. And oftentimes that is being purported by there's the Internet Research Association, which is surprise surprise based in Russia, has a fondness for digital blackface, which is...
Ooh, that's a fun term.
Digital blackface. Literally just like Googling like nicely dressed black man and using that as their profile image, and then like tweeting like, I'm black and I'm Republican, and then watching that get all the traction and then deleting everything before they can get called out. And people's identities have literally been stolen. It's amazing. Like that football player for, I think, Michigan State, I'm not sure, a guy that saved a kid like falling out of a burning building sometime this year, among all the other catastrophes. A bunch of accounts started using his name and image and saying like, I'm voting for Trump because he was a prominent figure at that point. And it's that's just like so sinister, and it's
yeah.
And it's still happening. It's not like, oh, we busted the bots or something like that. It's an ongoing thing. I mean, they made a joke about it at the end of, oh, Colin, take off your headphones. Spoilers.
Oh, we're going to talk about Borat subsequent movie film.
Borat subsequent movie film spoilers. At the end of the movie, they make a joke about like little Kazakhstan girls writing, "I'm a black man and I'm voting for Trump" on Facebook.
Yep.
You're good,
Yeah,
Colin.
very nice. Oh, sorry, I gotta say it with the accent. Very nice.
Very nice.
Very nice.
This
Very
is my
nice.
wife. All right. Okay, so that's enough Borat. Although Borat subsequent movie film is pretty good, would recommend watching it.
What did you guys talk about? Rudy Giuliani?
No, but that was a thing too.
That was a thing.
Yeah, I mean, Trump has no idea who Rudy Giuliani or Steve Bannon is.
We almost saw
Rudy Giuliani doesn't know.
Giuliani's
He doesn't
thing.
know what a penis is. So
That's what he was trying to figure out in that scene.
that's why he had his hands on his
What
pants. He
is
found
that?
something
What
down
is
there. It was
that?
like, hold on, what the
What is this?
Have I had this the whole time?
Oh my god.
What is this? That's where I put my shirt. So
Oh, there's that roll of quarters.
gross. Oh, does that mean it's? Oh, I'm not going there. Okay, so with Twitter, with bots, right? I've read before that with Twitter, especially because it's a social media, it leans toward a younger generation, right? And the younger generation is leaning a lot toward the liberal side of the political spectrum. So a lot of people on Twitter tend to be more liberal in the first place. You know, maybe not radical left, but you know, at the very least center left, right? Like they're a little more open to those kind of things. So these bots are riling up people who are just getting mad at a platform that mostly agrees with them, which again is just contributing to the anger and frustration that a lot of people are probably feeling right now amid this terrifying week that is a culmination of, I mean, frankly, years of this shit, but most especially in the past few months. You know,
There's that new
Yeah,
word that I like. Instead of hate watching, it's doom scrolling.
doom scrolling.
Doom scrolling. The 2020. That's got to be the term of the year, dude. For real.
Oh yeah. Yeah, doom scrolling is kind of my favorite hobby of the past year. But let's take bots out of the equation for a bit and let's assume in good faith that because there definitely are conservatives on Twitter, absolutely, right? Like there are
Yeah, and
conservatives
they're
everywhere.
usually the ones getting ratioed.
Yeah.
That's when you find. That's where you find the people that are looking for a fight, so they get into it with conservative bots.
Right. But when you have like real conservatives on the platform, which, you know, again, it's fine. I don't want to say like if you're conservative, you can't be on Twitter because that's dumb, right? It's a free country. It's a free internet, or at least, you know, until they regulate it. But then there are people who then tweet things that are in such bad faith because, again, Twitter's all about short, snappy, to the point where you don't even have to have context, right? And a tweet that I've seen surface in the past few weeks is something that Joe Biden tweeted on October 29th or so of last year, of 2019, right? So Joe Biden, either President of the United States Joe Biden or enemy of America Joe Biden, depends on who wins, right? He said something along the lines of like, oh, we've had a pandemic plan ready to go in the White House for a long time, and Donald Trump has dismantled it, right? October 2019, way before anything about COVID even began, before the pandemic started, right? And after a while, people, probably with conservative leanings, dug up that tweet, retweeted, quote tweeted it, and were saying stuff like, it's almost like the Democrats knew COVID was going to happen.
Plandemic.
Yeah, and I don't wear a belt because I expect my pants to drop. I wear a belt in case my pants drop. You know what I mean? Like a pandemic plan is there as insurance in case a pandemic does happen.
Yeah, and let me explain something to you guys. Believe it or not, the government has fucking plans for a zombie apocalypse. I'm not joking. You can look this up. The government tries to plan for pretty much any sort of fucking world-ending type event, i.e. a pandemic. And when you you get rid of your pandemic team, which a pandemic is pretty fucking realistic and something that could, actually happen, like right now. It's probably good to have that team on hand and ready to go.
Yeah, it's almost like
it's
scientists have been saying. Yeah, it's almost like scientists have been saying that there's going to be more scary, fast spreading, deadly diseases because of, that global warming thing. So that different species are going to be driven into spaces that they're not usually in. And then we're going to get diseases from them. They've been saying that. I wonder if that has anything to do with it. Maybe not.
But Daily, my racist uncle cousin-in-law, said that global warming's a hoax.
Well, they're from Alabama because they're your uncle cousin-in-law. So, sorry, Alabama.
Yeah, I mean,
that
it's
was
a hoax
rude.
from China.
Yeah. How dare you say that about Bama? Yeah, I don't know, man. It's frustrating. It's because, I mean, all it takes, right, is just less than 140 characters to lay that seed of the Democrats planned the pandemic. Like, you're not even saying that's what they did, but you're making someone who reads that think, oh, that's suspicious. Why did Biden have a pandemic plan before COVID, right? But then if you think about it just like a little bit, you realize, oh, it's because the government should, right? It's just frustrating because it's the same people who would say, like, I own a gun for protection. Like, they're the same people who would say, I don't own a gun because I want to murder someone. But to have a pandemic plan because a pandemic is going to happen is the same as saying you would only own a gun because you plan to shoot someone soon, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's completely reductive. You have something in case of, like, break glass in case of emergency sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, all that really says about Twitter, and we've had so long to learn this now, is that even when Twitter did double its character count, a couple years ago to 280 instead of 140, Twitter is absolutely no place for nuanced conversation, is really what it boils down to. Putting something out there that does have a lot of nuance and trying to summarize that, i.e., like, insert political issue here, ultimately isn't really going to do anyone any sort of favors. I mean, shit, even going as far as saying, like, the way that we do presidential debates, that's not doing anyone really any favors. Yeah, it's good for gotcha moments. It's good for basically
Memes.
face palming at any given thing that happened in memes. But, like, having someone on the stage, and I'll kind of credit Joe Rogan for bringing up this point because I'm kind of taking this away, but I think it's a good point. But having people on the stage that, are potentially leaders of the free world, or like the most powerful person on the country, and saying, hey, this is a really important issue and you have 2 minutes to talk about it. Like, how is that's really not that much better than a tweet or a string of tweets.
Well, that's not a conference. That's a debate. In which case, they're using the rules of debate. Like, that's a rule of debate. Like, that's high school debate does that too.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get that, but what I'm saying is, like, I mean, there is nothing stopping that same debate from happening on a place like Twitter. So it's not really a long it's not really a conversation. You're at the end of the day, they still got to move on to the other topics as quick. They still have other things to get to. Like, I get that that's debate, and I'm not saying this shouldn't happen at all, but I'm just saying that, like, that's what Twitter can sort of feel like as an analogy.
Yeah.
It just leaves out nuance. If anything, it's worse than debates.
Yeah, no, I would say Twitter is hands down worse than debates because, trust me, if you prepare for a debate, you can say a lot in 2 minutes, and you can make absolutely sure that your point is crystal clear with the context you need, right?
Right.
If you're good at it. Whereas with Twitter, when you only have 280 characters, that's like 28 10-letter words. That's not that much.
I mean, now you can thread things, which whatever, but yeah. Point is, Twitter not great for conversation.
So follow us on Twitter.
Follow us on Twitter.
I was gonna say, is that the question then? Like, is the internet, did it do worse for conversation and having discussions of opposite views?
I think there's a lot of nuance to that question, but TLDR, yes, it did worse. It absolutely did worse. But I don't think it's necessarily the fault of the internet. I think it's the fault of the human brain not adapting to the internet well enough or quickly enough, right? Because even without the internet, it makes a lot of sense that you want to congregate with people that you agree with, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's the reason you go to church every Sunday, is to practice something that you have in common with a lot of other people in your community, as an example, right? That's the reason you joined, I don't know, like hockey club when you were in high school, because you were interested in hockey and you wanted to meet other people who were interested in hockey. That is something that's pretty hardwired into our DNA, because that's kind of how we survived back when we had to fight the dinosaurs.
Wait. Wait.
Yeah? Sorry, I read that on conservative Twitter. Did we not fight the dinosaurs?
Okay. Yeah. No. Go on. Go on.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that's something that's hardwired in our DNA. We like the us. We like the group that agrees with us. And the internet itself has created a community where you can like do that on a hyper scale. You can do that to an absurd level. You can find a community for snake tattoos.
Snake tattoos.
Is that...
Wait, can I get the snake tattoo with like the snake like going through like a skull, but then like a rose?
Sure.
Oh my God.
Something edgy.
Or like a rose and then a snake and then maybe a skull.
Maybe a knife.
My
in
point
there
being
too?
here,
And then, yeah, I got to throw a knife in there, and also mom with a heart around it.
Mom with a heart, and also like Born to Live or something else,
No
like really
regret.
absurdly, like
Live, laugh, limp biscuit. You know.
Yeah. There you
Live,
go.
laugh, love.
My point being there is something as niche as snake tattoos has a community out there where you can find it and feel super fucking good. Like, yeah, snake tattoos are the best thing on the planet. Nothing can beat it. Nothing can top it. And you can feel so vindicated in that idea, which on one hand is really good. On the other hand, that lets you feel the same way about fascism, racism, white supremacy. There are only men and women. There's nothing else in the binary. Like, when you can have all of these more, let's say, mean views of the world, and that's putting it very lightly, when you can have all those views and be affirmed in your worldview because of the internet, that ain't it, Chief. That doesn't feel great to know.
Right. I mean, you're not exposing yourself to really anything else. I mean, what you think is just these. I mean, that's just how you live. You know, at least I'm sure in some cases, certainly.
Yeah.
You know, that's just how you live, and until those people are thoroughly exposed to different ideals, and you know, they have conversations, and they at least are open-minded and attempt to learn, then that's your worldview is not going to change.
Yeah. I mean, the reason we have the word worldly to describe, you know, someone that knows a lot about different walks of life and many different things is because pre-internet, travel was the only way you could really expose yourself to a whole lot of different ideas and ways of living and people's opinions. But now supposedly we got the World Wide Web, www.reddit.com, to open yourself up to more things. But there's a lot of things that are geared toward, you know, crafting our own bubbles and then staying in them.
I mean, at least that means it's cheaper to have a bigger, more nuanced worldview, I guess, in a sense, right? Because you don't have to just travel.
I mean, that's kind of the thing, is the internet does offer the tools to make that happen. You can learn so much about the world and how other people view the world with just a simple Google search.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is, I mean, let's take Google and Facebook specifically as examples here. They are, oh no, my phone thinks I'm trying to ask it something because I said the G word.
You said the G word.
This is the power.
This is the power.
This is the power of Google.
G-Man Graves?
Yeah, Google's hearing everything I'm saying, so that's beautiful. The power they have is they're okay. Now I lost my train of thought because of Google itself. Maybe that's the conspiracy theory, is they knew
The power
I was about
that
to
Google
say
has.
something.
Yeah.
No, so the point of it is that you can learn anything beyond your worldview and your scope. You can see how the other side lives. If you are raised in a family that believes abortion is bad, you can go online and read and learn the stories of people who support abortion and understand why. And you can read some really powerful testimonials out there that might sway your worldview. The problem is most people don't want to do that, right?
It's a
Or
state
just
of
don't know any
mind.
better.
Exactly. And Google and Facebook don't give you the tools to challenge your worldview, because the more your worldview is supported, the longer you're on Facebook, the more ads you see, the more money Facebook makes, the more data they learn about you, the more they can sell your data to China and other places. And it's just all fueled by money and greed.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Mic drop. Mic drop.
That's the mic drop.
That's the mic drop moment.
Sure.
Money and greed.
Own the TIVs. Mm-hmm.
And that's why I've actually seen this in a couple communities now, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but I think it has to do with what Robert was saying. That's why I think, even though we spent about the last hour and a half or so talking about, you know, politics and how we view the world, or how we get our information, or how you should get your information, et cetera, et cetera. What I don't want this to be is, like, if you're someone who is listening to this podcast and you have more, like, you know, differentiating worldviews, you have maybe more conservative politics, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I don't want to create a space, you know, for those people that listen to us that feel like they aren't welcome just because we have differing views from them. Mm-hmm. Right. Because I want them to have, you know, a comfortable environment for their views to be challenged, or even and the off chance that they feel the need to challenge us, like, them to be able to reach out and say, like, hey, this is how I feel about A, B, and C issue, and here's why.
Yeah.
I want this to be a place where we can have that conversation. And because I think we've been pretty upfront and honest with how we feel about certain issues throughout this whole episode. But even so, like, I want those people to feel comfortable here and, like, open up a conversation. I don't want this to be a place of reductiveness.
Yeah. Yeah, I want this place to be welcoming to anyone of all faiths, all beliefs, all political leanings. Unless you like pistachio ice cream, you can fuck right off with that. You're not welcome here.
Bye, guys.
Oh no,
I'm leaving.
Oh no.
Well, I can't.
Daily's.
Maybe I won't like it anymore. I hear that some people's tastes change after they get it back from COVID. So we'll see. The jury's still out on that.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to say that, though, because I have seen it be like I have seen communities that, like, hey, if you supported Trump or feel this about said issue or whatever, like, fuck off, we don't want you here, like, get the fuck out. And I don't think there's anything gained from that, personally. I don't think that opens any sort of conversation up. Yeah.
How are you hanging there, Daily? How's your taste coming along?
It's not.
Oh no.
My taste isn't. If you think that COVID is a hoax, I've got some firsthand account.
Yeah, Dale's got a pretty hard and fast argument there.
A little bit.
Yeah, just let her sneeze on you if you think it's a hoax.
Yeah. Let's have a real close conversation face to face.
Yeah, let's dox Daily.
Yeah.
Please no.
She lives in
United States. There. Mm-hmm. They can find me now.
But I know I was talking for a while, Daily. Do you have anything to add?
I do have, I think, hope as people become more media literate, that we're going to become more aware of the bubbles and that are being created, and not only calling out the algorithms and companies that perpetuate them, but also ourselves, and being more cognizant of that and trying to, burst the bubbles. But I think we can see some progress, like Twitter doing the fact checking thing, and marking tweets that it's like, this is misleading information about X subject, so just keep that in mind, is good stuff. And I think that the further we go down this timeline that we're on, this very interesting timeline, the further we'll see work being done to that end, I believe.
I'd like to believe so too.
I want to believe.
Yeah, I think it is a good place for us to lay this cast to rest. we've been doing this for a while. It's a lot longer than I thought, and I'll be honest, we're only like a third of the way through the notes that I thought we could get through today. And oh man, we've had a lot of feelings, I guess. I think if anything, this week has made it very clear to me that America is a far more divided country than I personally wanted to believe. But I think that more than most people thought before Tuesday, right? And I think it's clear to show that this entire 90-minute show today has been about just social media, right? And we have only gotten through laying out some of the problems with it. We haven't even discussed like what can we do to solve it, or what are some of the problems we've missed. I mean, like Daly just brought up the whole like Twitter fact checking different posts, right? And I mean, then that brings up the whole, why is the truth why is the truth politicized, right? That's a whole other fucking rabbit hole.
Absolutely.
But we can save that for another time.
Yeah. On a side note real quick, recommended watching, if you haven't seen The Social Dilemma yet on Netflix. Does a pretty good, like, it expands quite a bit on quite a few of the points that we were talking about in the show. If you're someone who's already familiar with a lot of the issues, I would say it's still worth watching. It gets a little hokey with a lot of the metaphors and stuff that it uses in the movie, but it's still very much worth watching. And it really gets to the heart of the issues in social media right now.
Alternative point. When Colin says hokey, it's like when Biden says malarkey when he means shit. It's very fucking cheesy. It is like absurdly cheesy.
It is definitely cheesy, but it does get the points across. I think it's an important documentary.
It's malarkey. That's a load of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I guess we can wrap. I just want to be clear, if you've gotten this far, one, I'm sorry. I imagine that you are feeling just as doom scrolly as we are about just the state of the world. And,
doom listening? Question mark?
Doom listening, yeah. And even though things aren't looking great, we hope that our skewed views of the world has maybe brought a little bit of weird, macabre happiness, or at least laughter to your day. And if it hasn't, don't worry. Next week we won't be talking about things that are as existentially dreadful. I think next week we're going to talk about cat girls. So it's just like fucking total swing.
Yeah, we're really swinging hard. And speaking of swings, just to date this podcast even, we're at the end of this recording. It looks like the biggest update we have is the race has tightened in Georgia between Trump and Biden. It is a 0.6 point lead. Donald Trump leading right now with a 0.6 points. So that's 49.7 to 49.1. And so they're still counting ballots. But yeah, it looks like the only big update from the past hour.
Well, hopefully by the time you're listening to this, it'll be a different, you'll know.
You'll know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tomorrow morning.
Yeah. Well, so a couple housekeeping things. I mean, I guess I've dropped it a bit. You can follow us on Twitter. That's linked below in the description. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, if you want to like challenge any of our views or talk to us about politics, I mean, the whole point of politics is a discussion, right? So if you have any things you want us to talk about on the show, you can email those to us at everythinginpod@gmail.com. That is also down in the description below. Otherwise, I don't know, smash that like button. Please
hit that subscribe button.
Dab
if you
on
are
them.
watching on YouTube.
Let us
Dab
be
on them.
Really appreciate it. It's super important.
Let us be part of your algorithm.
Yeah. So then we can make a video about flat Earth and then send you down the flat Earth.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Because that's how the internet works.
Should we just like make a video where it's like completely unrelated title to whatever the hell we're talking about in the episode, just to fuck up someone's SEO and algorithm?
Hell yeah.
Well, don't give it away. Don't give it away, Colin. We're going to call our episode next week Cat Girls. We're really going to talk about dog boys.
Oh, shit.
Wolf boys. Wolf boys.
Wolf boys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Furries.
Oh, furries is a whole other topic, my friend. This has been Everything in Poderation. We will be back next week with something a lot more lighthearted, and we'll see you then.